Good evening, and welcome to the March 26th, 2024 meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. I just have a couple of items. We have a postponement of item 2B, and I need a vote to take that out of order to postpone it.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now we need a vote to postpone.
Point of order, do you need to read it
Oh,
into
to
the record?
postpone, excuse me?
Do you need to read it into the record?
I don't think we have done that recently.
Okay.
Can we read it into the record?
It would probably be a good idea.
Okay, so we're postponing item 2B, request to postpone the request of Atlas Commons LLC owner for property located at 581 Lafayette Road. Whereas relief is needed for after-the-fact installation of an awning sign, which requires the following. 1, variance from section 10.1251.20 to allow a 32-square-foot awning sign where a 20-square-foot is allowed. Said property is located on Assessor Map 229, Lot 8B, and lies within the Gateway Corridor.
Madam Chairman, I'll make the motion to postpone.
Okay, is there a second to
Second.
postpone?
It's a simple request that we grant all the time.
Do you have anything to add, Mr. Neese?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll wait.
Yes. Did you have anything to add? The second?
No.
Okay. Is there discussion?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I guess my question is, when you have a motion to postpone, do you postpone it to a definite time or leave it open-ended? Because we have a existing sign that is out of compliance with the ordinance, and if this drags on forever, it just never complies.
I don't,
Typically, it would be a date certain.
typically it is a date certain, but it wouldn't be able to, I mean, somebody would pay attention to it, I'm sure. Do you want to make a date certain? A date certain? Since we
To
don't.
the April meeting.
Okay. Do you accept that?
Sure.
Okay,
Well,
then
I
if,
just have a question, though.
yes,
If the property owner did not come to the board, or does not come to the board, won't they eventually be accruing fines for the out-of-compliance sign?
one would hope so.
We would get into an enforcement
No.
action.
Yeah, so I mean, the impetus is there for not to postpone it forever. So I'm okay with the date certain, but I don't really think it's,
Okay, so right now
Necessary.
the motion is to postpone until our April meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so the postponement is happening. The other item of business I want you to know about is the withdrawal of item 2C. The 101 International Drive has been withdrawn by the applicant, so that needs no action from us. Okay, so the first item of business is the request of Sherry A. Holmes and Yvonne P. Go request for the extension for 411 South Street.
Right.
Request for one-year extension for 411 South Street.
Madam Chairman,
Yes,
I'll make the motion to grant the one-year extension for 411 South Street.
okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, do you have anything to add to that? No?
Nope.
Okay. Any discussion? Yes.
Yeah, I'll just say I'll support it, but I find that the applicant's explanation for the reason for the postponement is wanting. I mean, I'm saddened that this individual sounds like they are having issues from a job standpoint, but I'm not sure what that has to do and doesn't relate back to why they need to get a one-year extension for their project, so.
I mean, I imagine it's a financial
Yeah.
hardship issue. I certainly wouldn't want to be spending big money on a renovation when I was out of a job. So I'm a little bit more sympathetic to the rationale than some other cases we've had.
Okay, so there's a motion to postpone, to postpone.
No.
No, I'm sorry, to an extension.
Yes.
This has not been a great day. May I? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
In
Aye.
favor? Any opposition? No. Okay. Now, we are on new business. A, the request of Sherry A. Holmes and Yvonne B. P. Goldsberry, owners, for property located at 45 Richmond Street, whereas relief is needed for the following. 1, variance from section 10.515.14 to install a mechanical unit 8.5 feet from the side property line, whereas 10 feet is required. Said property is located on Assessor Map 108, Lot 18, and lies within the mixed residential office and historic district. Is there anyone to speak to this application?
Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. It's been a
Hello.
long day. Ann Whitney, I'm the architect on the project. So basically, we're just here to see if we can place this generator. As you can see from the floor plan, with the elevation, that's the, yeah. We had enough setback to be able to put the heat pumps, and we have a HDC approved the fencing around that. So this seemed a good place to locate this generator, even though it has to be 18 inches off the building and within no closer than 5 feet in any kind of an arc around. So it seemed like a good spot. It's in, the fence is tall on that side, and that property line gets narrower as it goes back, plus the location of the windows was going to make it difficult. Basically, some photos of kind of hard to see, but, you know, you see how narrow that back L is, and I noted generally where that location would be on that left-hand photo. I see the 5 feet. I've got specs on the generator. Generator is located next to the approved heat pump enclosure, needs to be 18 inches off the residence and no closer than 5 feet. This area is screened from the street with fencing. Criteria for the variance. Variance is not contrary to public interest in that this location will minimize public view of the generator. Variance is consistent with the spirit of the ordinance in that this location has the least impact for both the public and the owners. Substantial justice will be done as there's no other location with a 5-foot clearance from a window, and the 8'9" setback is close to the required 10 feet. Variance will not diminish the value of surrounding properties. Special condition of this property is the existing residence location. The left side setback is just conforming, and the right side has minimal space between the residence and the driveway. And there's a small pocket backyard that we didn't want to put it there because that's the main sort of yard space on the back of the property. Are there any questions?
Would you like to speak to the
What's that?
criteria, or was that the hardship that you?
Oh, I just read that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it was very informal, but I
Yeah.
didn't know if you had concluded it. Are there questions? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
What would we like to do?
Well, we have to.
Public hearing?
A public. I'm sorry, I think I have. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak to, for, or against this application? Is there anyone in this public who would like to speak to the application? Anyone in opposition? Okay, then the public hearing is closed. Now, would anybody like to do so?
I make a motion to approve the variance as presented and advertised.
Is there a second? Okay, Mr. Mantle seconds you.
Okay. With regard to the criteria, granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest, and it would observe the spirit of the ordinance. There's no public interest to be served by not allowing this variance. The location proposed for the generator is kind of in a no man's land between the two properties, and it was really not stick out as not belonging there also due to the fact that the HVAC system also has a presence in that same area. Granting the variance would do substantial justice, yes. There's no loss to the public that would outweigh the benefit to the applicant. We often approve these upgrades of, never mind, strike that. I'll just leave it as there's no detriment to the public that would outweigh the good accruing to the applicant. It's not going to diminish the surrounding property values. This is a quiet unit. It will barely ever run, and when it does, it will be in an emergency situation. Little enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. Special condition of the property is the limited size and shape of the lot, the undesirability of alternative locations for this unit, which would, if placed in the back of the property, inhibit the owner's enjoyment of the land in a way that's really not necessary. So that's my motion.
Okay, do you have anything to add?
It's good.
Okay, then the motion is to approve the request. Is there any discussion?
I just want to add that the, part of the increase in lot coverage is not the mechanical unit, it's the recalculation of the patio, which is now 18 inches over what it was. So
Yeah.
it's not just, excuse me,
We're talking about the generator.
Generator?
but I've read it that the patio itself, a raised stone patio has been installed and is now greater
No,
than
no,
18.
no, that's a different,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's a different.
Sorry.
That's
This
the
is
next
really
one.
quite a
Sorry.
night.
I know.
I'm glad I'm not alone. Okay, this is to approve the installation of a generator.
Yes, all right. Sorry about that.
Right. Mr. Mantle? Oh, no, she's not, but we don't need an alternate tonight, as, at this point.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Margison?
Yes.
Mr. Rayam?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
And Mr. Neese?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. The next item of business is the request of Henrik Eden and Kathleen Eden, and forgive me if I'm messing up your name, for property located at 85 Pinehurst Road, whereas relief is needed to construct a second-floor addition to the existing attached garage, which requires the following. 1, variance from section 10.521 to allow A, a 4.5-foot side yard where 10 is required, B, a building coverage of 29% where 25% is allowed. 2, variance from section 10.321 to allow a non-conforming structure or building to be extended, reconstructed, or enlarged without conforming to the requirements of the ordinance. And 3, variance from section 10.515.14 to install a mechanical unit 2.5 feet from the left side property line, whereas 10 feet is required. Said property is located on Assessor Map 221, Lot 73, and lies within the general residence district. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair and the board. My name is Henrik Edin, that's how it's pronounced. I'm owner of the property on 85 Pinehurst Road together with my wife. We purchased the property in 2021 and live there with our 3 young children. We're proposing to build an addition on top of an existing attached garage that is within the required side setback from the property line where our good neighbors Daniel and Lena Wyand live with their family. The space will be used for 2 bedrooms for a growing family and allow us to convert an existing bedroom into a home office as I work from home and a much needed laundry space. The addition we are proposing will not expand the existing building coverage. However, there is an existing raised patio behind the garage that was constructed by the previous owners, making the existing building coverage exceed the maximum 25%. We've discovered during this process that the permit was never filed for constructing this patio. We do not know how that could have happened, but we intend to do the best we can to remedy that fact by filing a permit after the fact. We're also proposing to install a mini-split unit within the side setback. Due to the raised patio, it would be difficult to place this behind the addition or any other location. If I move on to the variance criteria, granting this variance will not be contrary to the public interest, and in the spirit of the ordinance is observed for the improvements to the existing property, which was originally built in 1940. The improvements is in alliance with similar properties in the community, which have also improved the quality of their properties to the benefit of everyone within the neighborhood. Substantial justice will be done so a family can continue to grow and invest in their home and community as their neighbors kindly have. Allowing these variances releases the undue burden that allows us to make improvements to the property to be more functional without any detrimental effect in the neighborhood or any harm on the public interest. The values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished through the property design, construction, and permitting process. It will provide the same enhancement and improvements in value that we have benefited from similar renovations that have followed before us in the surrounding community. Literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship due to the unique circumstances of this property. A variance is reasonable and would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. Enforcing the provision would not allow for a functional or beautification process that benefits the aggregate and would unnecessarily force a young family to consider to move, given the need for additional functional living space for our family. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Are there questions for the applicant? Yes, Mr. Ram.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm taking a look at your existing site plan, which is on page 57 of our packets. And I'm trying to understand some of the dimensional relief that you're asking for, because this is not really fully dimensioned to indicate that. So your existing garage is clearly within the 10-foot setback, but is that what is 4.5 feet from your property line? Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. And our, maybe this is a question for you, but so on page 53 in the staff planning department comments, it does say, talks about that raised stone patio and says that it meets required setbacks for an accessory structure, which I'm presuming means that it is 5 foot from the property line and less than 100 square feet in total area, and therefore it can be 5 feet off the property line?
I believe it's greater than 100 square feet. So in that case, it would be set back from any lot line at least the height of the building or the applicable yard requirement, whichever is less. So in this case, the applicant clarified to us that the patio varies from 22 inches to 38 inches. So then we would look at a setback of about 3.2 feet for the greatest height of that patio.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
I'm
sorry,
sorry.
Mr.
Go ahead,
Mace.
Tom. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
okay.
Okay,
I have
Mr.
a,
Ross.
I,
We
I
need to
have
be
a,
on opposite sides.
I have a question about the relief that's being requested with regard to the left side, the left yard setback. The relief that's being requested is 4.5 feet, but if I read the the diagram that Mr. Rayun was just referring to on page 57, isn't the mechanical unit closer than 4.5 feet? So wouldn't the relief requested
That's a
be?
separate one.
That's a separate.
Separate ask for
That's a
relief.
separate,
Where is that? I don't see that.
It's
Within
the third item that the chairman read.
I see. So it's not in the table
not in
of
the table.
existing and proposed conditions. It's just in the the text. Shouldn't the table read 2.5? I mean, I don't know if that has any
It
bearing on how.
references an
it would be.
asterisk about the mechanical unit.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. So anyway, the way it's phrased is adequate to provide the relief that's needed for the mechanical unit.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr.
Thank you.
Neese. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you done, Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
The Battle of the Toms. Are you done?
I am.
Okay, Mr. Neese.
I'd kind of like to follow up on the the point that Mr. Rome brought up. So the rear setback, I guess I'm struggling to understand, so the patio is considered an accessory structure. But the definition of an accessory structure in the ordinance says it's a subordinate building. And a building is defined as having walls and a roof. So is it common practice at the board that accessory structure is extended to items without a roof?
So this would be under structure rather than building, which is defined separately. So we would look at structure, which is any production or piece of work artificially built up or composed of parts and joined together in some definite manner. And in this case, under the definition of accessory building or structure, we would look at the language that cites that it would be attached in a substantial manner to the main building in order to be considered part of the main building. And that's where that interpretation came from.
Okay, I guess where I'm struggling is that the definition of an accessory building or structure is that it's a building, which seems to be a flaw in the definition. It doesn't say a building or structure, it says it's a
does.
building.
It says a building or structure.
It says accessory building or structure, and then structure has a
But then the
separate
definition is an accessory building or structure is a building. But I just bring that up as pointing out there's a little confusion in the definitions. The definition doesn't say it's a building or structure, it says it's a building. And I just want to make sure we're giving the relief that this gentleman needs for the property, not
Yeah.
making a point of this. But if you think it's clear, then I'll just shut up.
I think the definition contemplates structure as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak in opposition? Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak to, for, or against? Okay. And the public hearing is closed. It is back to us.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance request as presented and advertised.
Thank you, Mr. Rossi. Is there a second?
I'll
Okay.
second.
Yes, Mr. Mantle is seconding.
Okay. With regard to granted request not being contrary to the public interest and the variance would be observing the spirit of the ordinance, which we could take together, the purpose of the setback requirements and the specific variance related to the specific variances that are being requested is really to preserve open space and light. There is adequate room between this structure and the structure on the adjacent property. I should say more like abundant room between those structures, and approval of this variance would not negatively impact the feeling of space and light between the structure and the structure on the adjacent property. So in that case, the spirit of the ordinance is met. Granting the variance would do substantial justice. There's no loss to the public at all with regard to allowing this variance to move forward, and therefore there is nothing that outweighs the benefit to the applicant. I believe that with regard to the value of surrounding properties, the project design is very nice. It comports very well with what else is going on in the neighborhood, and I believe it will only enhance the value of the surrounding properties by bringing up the value of this property. The hardship, that's always a tougher one. The special conditions of this property that distinguish it from other properties in the area. I would say that with regard to the lot coverage, the special condition is that the structure in question is a patio. It's only 18 inches above, which means because it's 18 inches or more above grade, it's not really a bulky structure that is being requested here. So that is a special condition that kind of leans me towards saying that this aspect of the zoning ordinance is really not meant to prevent this sort of a structure where it is located. And particularly in this case, I know that it's recursive logic to say that it's already there. I know that's not part of the special condition, but I do think that it would be kind of silly of the zoning board to require the property owner to go back and remove that structure at this point in time, especially since the property owner had nothing to do with the noncompliance. And with regard to the mechanical unit, there really is no other logical place to put the mechanical unit on the property, and that is the special condition that weighs in favor of granting this variance. And that's it. That's my motion.
Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Mr. Rossi said. For an application that seems to have a lot going on, the request is asking very little. The left yard setback hasn't changed, except for the mechanical unit, which isn't listed other than adding a mechanical unit, and the building coverage hasn't changed at all. Granted, there's a raised structure which adds to it, which happened in the past 15 years, but given the given current status, the request is minimal, and that's why I support the motion.
Okay. Discussion before we vote? Okay, so a yes vote approves the petition. Okay. Mr. Mantle?
Yes.
Ms. Margison?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes?
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Mr. Neese?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. You are all set? Mhm. And the next item of business tonight is the request of Susan Javorek and Michael Roche, owners for property located at 45 Kent Street, whereas relief is needed to demolish an existing one-story addition, reconstruct a two-story addition, add a deck on the rear of the building, and relocate a bulkhead, which requires the following. 1, variance from section 10.521 to allow a 5.5-foot left side yard where 10 feet is required, and B, to allow a building coverage of 35% where 25% is allowed, and 2, variance from section 10.321 to allow a non-conforming structure or building to be extended, reconstructed, or enlarged without conforming to the requirements of the ordinance. Said property is located on Assessor Map 113, Lot 145, and lies within the General Residence A District. Is there anyone to speak to this petition?
Thank you, Chair Eldridge. Monica Kaiser from Hopeful Phoenix, Gormley and Roberts. With me is it Javorek or Javorek? Javorek, Susan Javorek. Her husband, Michael Roche, is at home with the kid. And also with me is John Shagnon, well known to you all. I have to say, you're moving so quickly tonight that I've lost some prep time that I was planning to use in the gallery. So let me just illustrate where we are. The famous Kent Street. I think we're all familiar with Kent Street at this point. This property abuts the park, and they have, here we go. So there's an existing house here, 2 stories, existing little front porch and stairs, and then there's a 1-story addition back here, and some various, like a bulkhead, concrete stairs, a retaining wall back here. Over here, this area here is like a 3-season room. That only takes up 1 floor, and although that will be sort of reconditioned and improved as part of this overall renovation, we're not expanding that, going up with that, or anything like that. The project is entirely this, to take this existing addition on the back of the house. Susan tells me the front of the house, the main house, is really quite solid and in good shape. But this addition in the back, it leaks, it's got some structural issues, has some mold, it's got some problems. So their plan is to remove that addition, and also these concrete stairs, which are kind of hazardous. And this bulkhead here. They're going to remove all of that, and then, Jillian, if you can go to the proposed. There you go. So they're going to remove all of that stuff, and they're going to construct this new addition on the back that will be 2 stories tall. There will be some improvements in this area by the garage in terms of new stairs, new retaining wall, and the like. And there is a deck proposed off the back of the house. So we are here today because the bulkhead, which has been relocated from the driveway side of the property to the north side of the property, is in the side setback. And we're here today because the building coverage exceeds what is permitted. If you can go back to the existing. On paper, I can say that the building coverage numbers caused me a little heartburn until I really spent some time with the plan and got thinking about it. What's not clear how this shakes out, and particularly with the way your ordinance has changed, where you count more things as building coverage than you did before because you measure from the existing grade now instead of just the ground. So I have a little bit of uncertainty, and I think it's a good thing because you have, I don't know if you can zoom in or not, Jillian, but like this concrete set of stairs, this retaining wall, this bulkhead, like all these things are all sort of part of this, part of what's going on in the back, if you will. And they're all going away with the exception of the bulkhead that's going to move up here. The other things are, so I guess what I'm saying is you look at the addition on the back and you think, wow, that's kind of a big addition. But what I think isn't clear is that how much of this stuff here, which is very busy in this area, sort of goes away, so that the addition sort of comes out and takes the place, not just of the existing one-story addition here, but also takes the place of some of these items here, which may or may not count as building coverage in the same way, but like are there on the ground and certainly go to open space, but they may not count as building coverage depending on how high they are. So that frankly made a difference to me as I was thinking about this project. I guess at this point what I would do is pause, ask if you have any technical questions about the plans that John can answer, questions of me, and then if not, I can address the criteria. What's your pleasure?
Mr. Rossi, go ahead.
In terms of the building coverage calculation, I don't know if this is the kind of question you're asking for right now, but what exactly is included in that? Is the proposed deck included in the building coverage?
Yes, I believe it is. If you go to sheet 3, C3, and Jillian, you can go there too, and just, excuse me, just slide over to the left. And if you're
Which
looking,
page number is this, Julian, on our package?
C3.
yeah, he's
Oh, I'm sorry.
asking for the
It's
page number
81.
in the packet. Sorry about
I
that.
have 81.
That's okay. Just give me a second to scroll over to it so I can see it.
What page do you have?
Yep, okay, I'm on it.
John and his team are really great about making these nice impervious surface area charts. So I'm highlighting it up on the screen, but you're probably looking at it, Member Rossi, as well. So, and then below the chart, scroll up just a little bit, Jillian.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, so below the chart, it tells you existing building coverage, and it gives you all the numbers added up. And then if you look at each number and then go up to the chart, you can tell what has been counted. So the main garage has been counted, the garage has been counted, the deck/porch has been counted. This is all in existing right now. Those stairs that are above 18 inches have been counted. The existing bulkhead has been counted. I don't know that the concrete steps have been counted. And I wonder about that, and we can ask John about that. I don't know if he can tell. But those things all added up come to the 28%. And then if you go to proposed, you can see what's changed is the size of the main structure has gone from 1,071 square feet to 1,333 square feet. So that's the biggest change. And then you can see there is the garage is still there and counted. 131 is the deck and porch, so that accounts for the enlarged deck. The stairs above 18 inches is still 11. The bulkhead, slightly larger at 33 square feet. Those are all the things that are counted under proposed building coverage.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
And if you can go back to Jillian, if you can go back to like the picture part of the plan. I just want to talk a little bit about the driveway area. So this area here, this is on the proposed, but it's similar on the existing. There is a change in grade from the driveway. You can see these proposed stairs that are going up into the yard. So the way it is now, there is a retaining wall, and there's a change in grade from the driveway, and then the yard is sort of mounded up a little bit. So that's not changing, but there are some new landscaping features there in terms of that retaining wall and those steps. And this is the reason why the bulkhead is not sort of maybe on this side or in the same place. Obviously, we can't leave it where it was because we wouldn't be able to put the whole addition there, but also we can't really put it in the driveway because it will stick out too much into the driveway. And we don't want to put it here because that's where the stairs are to go up and down to the yard. So that's why the bulkhead is located over here.
Mr. Mattson.
Yeah, it's kind of a two-part question. So if we put aside the bulkhead for a second, if you're just looking at the addition, I just wanted to confirm that, so that looks like it's entirely within all the yard setbacks?
That's correct.
Okay. And so I guess the second part is, for the bulkhead, is it over 18 inches tall?
I expect part of it is, which is why it's been counted, but I'll defer. Maybe John knows the answer to that.
So the bulkhead could be a sloped bulkhead. I think that's what you're getting at, and it doesn't count until it gets to be more than 18 inches above the ground. I believe that the entirety of it is counted because of the way it's being constructed. It's not sloping, it's all above that 18 inches.
It is, okay.
So it's not like a traditional sloped bulkhead that some of it might not count.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Wait, is that both parts of the?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Ms. Marchison.
So, I'm sorry, Attorney Kaiser, if you could just walk through again what is included in the proposed building coverage. I see that we have the 1,333 square feet
Yeah.
for the house, and then where is the proposed addition?
The addition is included within the main structure.
Okay, so the main structure is 1,333 square feet, including 452 square feet.
Hang on, John is
Why do we care how many square?
raising his hand.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No,
Is that
no.
true?
Yeah, the square footages are listed. The addition is 62 square feet, I believe, so,
We're just trying to figure out where it falls over here on the chart.
understand. That's included in with the house, so the house total is shown, and then the amount of the addition is also shown. Is that what you're looking at there?
I'm looking at the proposed building coverage.
Mm-hmm.
So the 1,033 includes the addition,
Correct.
and the 131 is what?
The 131
So the 131 is the,
deck slash porch, so that includes the front porch that's already there, which was 51 square feet.
no, it doesn't.
It doesn't?
So the back deck is 99 square feet. And then the area in the front that's called a porch is 32. And together they're 131.
Okay.
The-
Okay, yep.
So it says deck, porch. So that's the number that gets you there, the 99 and the 32.
So what I'm trying to say is that the before is there's 51 square feet of front porch and back deck or back porch. In the proposed, that number goes from 51 to 131, and that includes the deck off the back of the addition.
Okay. Questions? More questions? No. Questions?
Yes, I do have one other question.
Sure.
And it's not really a technical question as much as a question about the surrounding neighborhood. You've highlighted the lots in the area that already are non-compliant with regard to lot coverage, and there are
Sure.
quite a few of them, and, you know, as I walked around and just kind of eyeballed them, it's very obvious most of them are built beyond the lot coverage. Do you have any quantitative analysis? Like 35 is a big number. So do you know if the other lots are similarly non-conforming?
I don't know that I have that with me. I had some scribbles that I used. I mean, basically, let me tell you how we made Exhibit F, which is a markup of your tax map with a lot of different colored highlighting on it. And, you know, obviously, we're not out there surveying all those lots. Can you enlarge that, Jillian? Thanks. But what I did is I tried to look at each tax card in the neighborhood, either the ones that on the tax map looked like they were pretty decent-sized houses, or because the tax map hasn't been updated to reflect some of the newer construction. I would just go by, like, I know that there's, you know, some houses up there that have been substantially added onto. So what I did was then look at those tax cards and add up the footprints, the footprint information for the structures as best I could. It is an imprecise, you know, number because I'm not doing overhangs. I'm not, you know, if the tax card's wrong, then I'm wrong too. But I think what's clear is that you have a number of these properties. Some of them have 1- and 2-car garages on back. And a lot of times people add it on, like Susan and Michael proposed to do, but maybe they didn't take the garage or the shed that they already had off at the same time. So, and some of the additions are pretty substantial, and we had this conversation about 9 Kent, where we, you know, took photographs of some of the houses in the area and showed you how significantly they were expanded. I can't tell you, and if you feel strongly about it, Member Rossi, then I would suggest that we postpone, and I can give you my notes. I know that some of them are over 30. I can tell you that I don't think anyone that's 35. If there are any in the high 30s, you have some lots on Sherborne that were recently unmerged and built upon. And some of those lots, there's 1 or 2 of them that are really small. So those lots, I think, may have over 30% building coverage. And then I think there is another one, I don't think it's on Kent, but I think it's over here on, what's between Kent and Sherborne, I'm spacing. What? Elwyn. So, yeah, there's a couple on Elwyn. I remember for a long time there was a guy that lived in this area on a double lot. My time's almost up.
Your time is probably up, yes.
But that's another example where there was a new build on a substandard lot, and some of those new builds on the very small lots, when you're getting closer to 4,000, they're well over. But if you want specific information, I would have to come back.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
I will,
The
I
criteria?
suppose, given the questions and the fact that I'm over, I would prefer to adjust the criteria. I'm also happy if
I
you've
would
read
like
them.
you to do the criteria, but let's keep it as short as it can be, quickly, pointedly.
Okey dokey. So it's the typical arguments that I make when I see you. If you turn to page 2 of the memorandum, we talk about the two-part criteria 1 and 2. The variances are not contrary to the public interest. The spirit of the ordinance is observed. And my analysis involves looking at the general purposes of your ordinance and then describing with some particularity how this meets those objectives or does not undermine those objectives. And essentially, we're looking at residential use in a residential zone, a fully dimensionally compliant addition except for this bulkhead. And to the extent that coverage is over, we're looking at how that fits in with the context of the neighborhood where there have been other properties that have been significantly expanded. The place next door appears to have had a similar 400 square foot addition added on as well. There are other properties, as we discussed, that have been added on. When we think about things like stormwater management and other things that typically concern us with building coverage, I'm looking at the fact that this is all dimensionally compliant except for that bulkhead. So there's plenty of separation between neighbors and space for stormwater treatment. So looking at the purposes of the ordinance and looking at the general essential character of the locality and the fact that this doesn't threaten the public health, safety, and welfare, our position is that those two criteria are met, that while the proposed conflicts with the ordinance, it does not conflict to such a degree that it undermines the purposes of your ordinance or alters the essential character. Substantial justice is done, as you know, is just sort of a balancing test, basically trying to figure out if the public gets anything from you denying this ordinance, and if so, is that more or less than the harm to the applicants from the denial. I would submit that given the dimensionally compliant nature of what's proposed, the fact that they're preserving the existing home, and simply adding on to make this sort of a more functional space and to replace this the addition that's there right now that's in poor repair, I don't think the public gets anything out of a denial, but Susan and Michael lose out significantly. It's not going to diminish the surrounding property values because there's sufficient air, light, space, separation, all of those things. The expanded home is similar to others that have been expanded in the neighborhood. It's not going to stick out like a sore thumb. It's not going to overpower anyone. So for that reason, it's not going to diminish the surrounding property values. Unnecessary hardship. Again, we look at the size of this small, narrow lot located among other small, narrow lots that are similarly developed and non-conforming. We talk about the cases that we always talk about that discuss when you have a situation where there are a lot of nonconformities surrounding another proposed property, and how the case law, some cases talk about how that can be construed to be a hardship. Looking at the purpose of the setbacks and the coverage requirements in terms of air, light, space, separation, stormwater treatment, I believe those are all met by the project. and therefore there's not a fair and substantial relationship. And I believe the expansion is reasonable. And denial would then result in an unnecessary hardship. I'm happy to entertain questions you may have about my analysis with the variance criteria. I did go very quickly.
Are there further questions? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the public to speak in favor of this petition? Is there anyone to speak in opposition to this petition? Is there anyone to speak to, for, or against? Okay. And the public hearing is closed. Motion, discussion?
I'll put some thoughts on the table, but I'm not quite ready or prepared to make a motion. I would have appreciated a more quantitative analysis of the lot coverages in the surrounding properties. However, looking at the tax map, and particularly the property that's on the corner of Lincoln and Kent Street, which is marked as number 47, lot 47, it seems readily apparent to the eye that the lot coverage with this structure is going to be at least equal to, if not exceeding, what's being proposed in the current variance request. And similarly, lot 72 across the street on Lincoln, which I would say both of those are legitimately within this neighborhood, seem to have similar kinds of coverages as to what's being proposed here. Moreover, I think in favor of, another factor that weighs in favor of this variance request is the open space behind it, the parkland in the back of the lot, and this addition is really not encroaching any further on the side setbacks. It's only really the action here is towards the rear of the property. So even though 35 is a big number, I guess I could see it.
That's not a motion.
One more
I
criteria and
didn't
you're
say it
there.
was- I
One more
didn't say it.
criteria and you're there.
What? Go ahead, David, fill in the blank.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to grant the request variance as requested and advertised, presented and advertised, excuse me.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mattson.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Ram.
I mean, Mr. Rossi really, I think, captured virtually all of it. I'll try and quickly just sort of re-summarize. The first two criteria, granting the variance would not be contrary to public interest. Granting the variance would observe the spirit of the ordinance. Those are typically combined and really are reflective of what is the general characteristics of the neighborhood, and is the proposed relief contrary to those general characteristics. The applicant might be somewhat imprecise, but I do think made a good faith effort, and I think on the whole, looking at it, without a very precise measuring, I think it's pretty clear that they've made a good argument that a lot of these properties, which are undersized relative to what the lot requirement is for the GRA, it's 7,500 square feet. This lot is very typical of the others at about 5,500 square feet or so. And there's a substantial long history of these properties being built out to a fair degree above what is again required by the ordinance for GRA. So I think they've kind of demonstrated that. The proposed addition is on the back side of the house, doesn't really affect the street view significantly. So with that, and the height of it, even though it's 2 stories, it's still sort of covered up by the front of the house. So from the general purposes of the ordinance in terms of the look and feel of the neighborhood, nothing is changing there. Granting the variance would do substantial justice. So again, is there something in the public that outweighs the applicant's desire for a more effective use of their lot and the addition that they need for a decent sized home, but still one that is not gigantic and can probably need a little bit more room to make a satisfactory modern home for these days. And so with that, I think that there is nothing, again, from a general person walking by, you're really not going to see much of a change with the bulk of the changes on the back side of the property. Granting the variance to not diminish the values of surrounding properties. Again, tasteful addition, not overly excessive, largely in conformance with the zoning requirements, not affecting light or air on either side excessively. I think there's nothing there to indicate that that would affect the values of the surrounding properties. And then hardship, I think that the two things, one is this lot is smaller than is required in the GRA. So that does give, I think, some leeway for saying that, there's, from a lot coverage standpoint, there's a hardship there. Going back to the side setback, yeah, there is a required relief there, but again, it's for a bulkhead, almost minor structure that no one really notices on the property. It has no imposition on light and air relative to the neighboring property. So this is really about the lot coverage. 10% above what is allowed per the ordinance, about 8% greater, 7% greater than what is currently there. I think the other factor, as Mr. Rossi brought up, is that this is open to the back. So I think that is an aspect of the hardship that says that, strictly applying the zoning ordinance to this particular parcel is not appropriate. There is a lot of open space in the back. The look and feel of it is such that it wouldn't feel imposing upon any neighboring properties. And I think the request is a reasonable one. It's an expansion of existing residential use in a relatively tasteful manner, keeping to the overall size, height of the structure, and keeping within the setback requirements. So with that, I recommend approval.
Does the second have anything to add?
Yeah, I'll just reiterate that I think the variances being asked for seem more intense than they actually are, because for the setback, it's actually to the bulkhead rather than the addition itself. And then for the building coverage, this is an undersized lot, so it really doesn't take a lot of extra square footage to go up in percentage. So I think this is a reasonable request.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, then a yes vote approves. Okay. Mr. Mantle?
Yes.
Mr. Margison? Ms. Margison? Like someone used to do that to me all the time. I think it was Arthur Barrett.
Yeah, he did,
Ms.
actually.
Margison.
Well, both Mr. and Ms. Margison say yes.
Thank you.
Don't count that as two votes.
Mr. Ray?
Ms. Rayom says yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
And Mr. Neese?
Yes.
And
It's the
Mr.
21st.
Eldridge?
It's the 21st century. Anything goes.
I vote yes, and you are approved. You're welcome. Okay, I want you to look at the clock. I know I had a lot of help, but I am getting you out of here early.
Can I just bring some,
Okay.
I just want to bring something up. I don't know if this is the appropriate way to do it, but if we could put on a future agenda, just a review of our rules. We haven't looked at them in about 3 years or so. So I don't know, David's the longstanding member here, how that was done previously, but it would have to be noticed and everything like that. But if we could just maybe do a review of them.
And also the question of the structure versus building versus whatever is something that I think we've had issues with before, and clearly it's something that we're having trouble understanding. So I'm thinking if we have this meeting, it's a good time for us to kind of ask other questions that are confusing, unclear, something. I always have trouble when they average the height. I understand it, I just don't get it. If those two things, I'm not asking you now, I'm just saying.
I'm trying to think, it sounds like it would be good for a workshop.
Yes, I think a workshop would be.
And I think obviously at the discretion of the chair, just because we don't know, the rest of the members don't know how lengthy the agenda is, or,
Well, we would make it on a night that this, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Raymond.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah. So in the past, we typically tried to do it as a work session, publicly noticed, but no public hearing associated
Right.
with it. It was usually the chair would come up with a few topics that they wanted to cover. Certainly, I don't know if you'd want to go over the rules and regulations line by line, but certainly be an opportunity for the members to bring up questions and/or recommendations for the changes in the rules. We've done that before. And then, within those topics, then at the end would be another opportunity for the members of the board to bring up, specific questions they might have. Ideally, if they can provide those in advance, you can have like a good solid agenda that you can put together on head scratchers that people have had.
Right. So I think that's an excellent idea, and I will talk to the planning department and see if we can set up a time, and if you would send them more specific questions about what you're looking for.
I have a few, but I assume that other people do too.
Yes.
so,
I didn't
yeah,
mean you. I
yeah.
meant you.
Oh, I was going to say. Mr. Margison objects.
Does Mr. Marchison have any?
Okay.
Yeah, your biggest issue is going to be finding a month where we don't have two, otherwise
Right.
have two meetings.
Right. And this month turned out very strange.
And ideally, having a good number of members who can participate
Right.
on the off week.
So we'll try to do that.
Keg of beer would help.
We could have it at my. Is there a move to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
The meeting is closed. Thank you.